Hi, Cynthia. Welcome back. It is Friday. You will be taking the SBAC next week. Please try your best. You have all the tools and capabilities to get mastery on the assessment. You just have to work as hard as you can. Don't take any shortcuts, and just do the best that you can. And I know that you will be successful if you do that. Today, I was gonna have you guys do some writing, but I changed my mind because it's been kind of heavy on the writing. So instead, we're gonna focus on the requirements for different essays that you'll be writing next week. Before we start doing that, let's go over this exit ticket. 74 students have taken it, which is quite low. Um, yeah, it's quite low. So about, I think 67% of students met their goal of 2 or 3. Let's go over this first question because this one seems to have given you guys a hard time. So source one was that long essay that talked about the requirements and some of the tools that people use to go on the trip, right? Source one says that. So source one presents information about what is needed to climb Mount Everest. Choose one answer that identifies the source that most accurately supports information on source one. So that one was source two, by the way. So source two supports the information in source one because it means source two, includes details about what was used. If you read source, you should have read source two, but source two talked about a couple that went on the hike, that went on the hiked up Mount Everest, and they talked about the different tools that they use. So source two supports source one because they talked about the tools, the equipment. Source three does not talk about any equipment. They just talk about the first people that traveled there or climbed the mountain. And then we get to this one, the CEEE. So a lot of students did really well here. Some of the issues that I saw were some students did not cite their sources, or you said in the source it states. You need to tell me the source number or name. Some students also had, there's a L there. Some students also had very short responses, and that's just not going to work out. Like this one, people considering climbing Mount Everest need to train. Oh my God. Need to train for 2 or 3 years in advance. That doesn't answer the question. The question was asking, explain why is it so difficult to climb Mount Everest? How climbing Mount Everest is difficult. You could have talked about the training that happens, but I was mainly focusing on the actual climb. Why is it so difficult to actually do the climb? Some students focus on the training that happens, but then some students did focus on the difficulty, especially using source two, right? Source two really talks about the struggles, right? The being blinded by the snow, the sun burning. You could have talked about the being having to lift yourself up, not being able to breathe, carrying all that equipment. That was what I was really looking for. But most of you guys did really well here. Um, some students didn't answer the question at all, but the biggest issue that I saw was some students did this answer, which doesn't answer the question, right? Just do the best you can, and you'll be fine. Okay. So now let's look at some. So next week for the performance task, for the ELA performance task, you are going to be asked to write an essay. Now I don't know what kind of essay they're going to ask you to write, but you need to be able to identify what kind of essay they want you to write. So for an informational essay, you guys did one for me for the printing press, right? There's a hook. There's overview. The hook is how you get the reader engaged, how you get the reader to continue wanting to read your essay. Overview is background information. Tell us something about the topic, and that comes usually from the sources. You don't cite the source here, you just tell us what you learn about it. And then there's the thesis. The thesis is kind of like the answer to the question, right? How did the printing press impact society? It allowed more people to be able to read. How, for example, a thesis for how is Elon Musk changing the world today, right? The answer could be, he's making it more accessible for people to have electric cars, solar roofs or whatever. Okay, so that's your thesis. This is the first reason. Your thesis will have reasons too, by the way. So here you'll have the reasons, and then here you're gonna break your reasons into parts. Reason one, evidence. So this would be thesis. This would be reason, evidence, and then explanation. Okay. Then you have your another reason. I put two R's. Evidence and explanation. In this case, you have two pieces of two reasons, two pieces of evidence, and two explanations. And then here you have your thesis again, overview again, and one for the world is what do you want your readers to get out of this, right? This is if they're asking you for two reasons and two pieces of evidence, right? This is informational. For informational, you are citing a source, right? Whenever you do an informational source, you are directly citing a source. I prefer that you use direct quotes when you are citing a source, and that you obviously tell us where you got this information from. You do not say in the text it states. You have to say something like in source 2 it states, or in the source called, give me the title, it states, right? This is an example of an informational essay from one of your classmates. Here's his hook. He's going to be overview is going to be here in the middle, and then he's going to have his claim or his thesis statement. Okay, so this is all of these essays are going to be multi paragraphs. I mean, there's going to be like 4 or 5 paragraphs each essay. You will be asked to do only one on the performance task. So informational, you are telling someone about a topic. In this case, you were informing the reader about the printing press and how it changed the world. Okay, so that's informational. So informational, you are directly citing a source. You are using sources. You're using sources for all of them, but there's differences, right? For informational, you're actually picking out evidence from the source. And then we didn't get to do one of these in social studies, but argumentative is pretty much the same thing as informational, except you're trying to convince the reader of something, right? An argumentative essay still has the hook, overview, thesis, reason, evidence, explanation, reason, evidence, explanation. And then this is the important part about the argumentative. You have a counter argument. Others will argue. That's why we have the others here. Or someone might argue. Someone might argue. So when you do the counterclaim, you're supposed to look at what is the opposing arguments. For example, let's say you're trying to argue that Amazon is good for society, right? Your thesis will be Amazon is good for society because give me your reasons, right? The counter argument to that is others will argue that Amazon is not good for society because, okay, and then the H is your rebuttal, how you answer. This is the however. Amazon, and then you restate your claim to respond to this person. So an argumentative essay is going to be the more challenging of these, right? Informational essay, and it's probably because we didn't do it, at least not in my class. So informational essay, you're informing. Argumentative essay or persuasive essay, you're trying to convince someone of something, and you are supposed that here you're supposed to have the opposing arguments, and then how would you respond to that? And it's better if you respond with evidence. Why is the other person wrong and why are you right? Okay, so you are responding to someone's arguments. Here's a an outline from a couple years ago from a student that did an argumentative essay. Argumentative essay about who is a better Renaissance man, Michelangelo or Leonardo. So here's his hook. Here's his overview. Here's his thesis statement. He believes that Da Vinci is more of a Renaissance man than Michelangelo. And here's his first reason. Here's his first reason. Here's his evidence. And here's his explanation. Here's another reason. Here's his evidence. and here's his explanation. And then here, this is where you see the counter argument. One might say that Da Vinci is not a Renaissance man, and Michelangelo is a Renaissance man because he has many famous pieces of art. And then this is where he goes. However, Da Vinci also had many different pieces of art that were very famous, and he wanted to master at, and he was also a master at anything he wanted to be at. Therefore, here's your thesis again. Therefore, Leonardo da Vinci is a Renaissance man. You see what he did here. So the the counter argument is the most important here. Okay, it's very similar to informational, but you do have a counter argument. Okay, for this type of essay, argumentative and persuasive, you still have a thesis, you have a hook, you have an overview, you have evidence, you have explanations, you cite your source, you are actually citing a source, but you also have the counter argument aspect of it. Okay. And this is his essay that he did a couple years ago. And then we get to the narrative. The narrative is probably the most fun because you can get really creative, right? The one thing about narrative that I want you to remember is narratives is a pretend story. It is a fictional story that you create using the knowledge that you learned from the sources. For example, you have been reading in my class the last couple of days. You've been reading on the climbing the Himalaya mountains, right? Mount Everest. A story that you could have created for that could have been someone in a first person or third person. First person is I, me, and third person is he, she, they. Okay. You could have created a story of someone going on the climb, someone breaking their leg. That will be the conflict. That will be the issue. Someone managing to to work through the pain, making it to the top, coming back, and there's details in between there, right? The big thing about narrative, it's that you do not, and I repeat, you do not cite a source. You do not say in source one it states that you don't have a thesis. You don't necessarily have overview the way that you have in the other ones, right? Narrative is the most different one from all of these. So in a narrative, you have the exposition. This is the different parts of the narrative. This is where you introduce background information, where you talk about your character, right? Oh gosh, where you talk about what's happening. Okay, rising action. I'm gonna read this for you guys. Rise in action. This is the part of the story that develops the problem or conflict through a series of events that build interest and suspense. So think of the story that you can create of someone going on the Himalaya mountains. It's really interesting, right? You're talking to your Sherpa, right? Another thing about the narrative is that you are using dialogue, right? Dialogue means that you're using quotes to talk to, so the characters can talk. You can be talking to your Sherpa. The Sherpa is like the leader of the expedition that's leading you. So you can be talking to your Sherpa, and he's saying something, and then you respond, and then he says something back, right? That's called dialogue. Okay, it is a story that is interesting. Some of you create, I mean, all of you, most of you, did a story, did a narrative for me a couple months ago for on someone going on Hajj. For a lot of you, the conflict was that you got lost or that you got hit by a rock when they were stoning the devil. Okay, so there's a climax. The turning point of the story where the problems are or conflict reaches its peak, following action, the events after the climax or turning points that lead to the resolution, then finally the resolution, right? So this is kind of like the kind of what you're going to be doing for SPAC if you get something like this, right? The outline is pretty, it's different, right? There's exposition, rise in action, climax, falling action, resolution. Okay, this is the rubric. So the one thing that I want you to remember for all of these, so we'll make a list in a second. For all of these, grammar is important for all of them. Right? You get points for grammar and punctuation. If you make a lot of spelling issues, you're going to be, your points are going to be reduced. Okay. The only one that has dialogue is going to be the narrative. And the narrative is going to be the only one that you don't actually cite the source. You don't write a story and say, in source 5 it states. You don't do that in a story. You never do that, right? When I tell my daughter a story at night, I don't say in source 8 the butterfly. You don't say that. It's just a story. Now, does the story need to be supported by what you learn in the sources? Absolutely. That's the point. If your sources are about sleeping, and the effects of sleeping, you don't write a story about the Avengers. It has to be about sleeping, right? And what you learn from it. Similar to what you guys did for the interim, with the Japanese internment camps. Similar to what you did for the travels of Hajj. Okay, it's very similar to that. This is what you're going to be working on the SBAC. You're going to have to identify what is it that you're being asked to do, and then I would suggest that you get a piece of paper and start working on your outline, whatever form that is. Okay, if it's informational, do this one. If it's argumentative, make sure you do this one. Don't forget the counter argument. Others will, however. And if it's a narrative, do this one. Right. The My concern is that students know how to do this, but they won't want to do it because it does require you to work and it does require your attention. But you have this. Like, I'm going to find out what the scores are before the end of the year, and I will reach out to you. Not to like, to make you feel bad, but just so you know, like, this is really important to me, and it should be really important to you too. On your exit ticket on Friday, this is what the exit ticket is. For example, this one, it says, which of the following requires a counter argument? Which of the following requires multiple paragraphs? I need to change this one's. I need to change some of these because some of these are incorrect. True or false? Your narrative needs to be based on the sources provided to you. Which of the following requires you to cite your sources? Two answers. And then here I gave you some examples, right? If you're given this assignment, is it informational, argumentative, or narrative? Same thing here. Same thing here. And then I have a true and false question here somewhere. There's a true and false here somewhere. Where are you? Oh, here you go. Your narrative needs to be based on that. That's the one. Okay. That's all I have for you. There will be some questions on the Ed puzzle, but I will be mainly looking at your exit ticket. Okay. Um, Again, I will reach out to you next week. You guys are ready for this. It's going to be great. I can't wait to see your results. And yeah, I'll see you guys later. Bye.